Good afternoon. The Design Review Board 2 public meeting of August 28, 2008 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed. Let me rephrase that. The case planner will let you know the appeal period for the particular case. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Mr. Carter?
Here.
Ms. Friedman?
Here.
Mr. Geragos?
Here.
Mr. Malikian?
Here.
Mr. Zarifian?
Here.
Okay, report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on August 21st, 2008. Oral communications. Do we have any people in the audience that wish to speak on an item not a part of the agenda? No. Seeing none, the next thing on our agenda is staff announcements. Staff does have one announcement. Staff is requesting that the board continue the case at 368 West Lexington Drive. That's case number 2 PDR 2007-089-B. It was improperly noticed, and we'd like to continue it for 2 weeks to September 11th.
Okay. Do you need a roll call?
Sure. Is there a motion to continue the project?
Take a motion to continue the project.
Okay.
I would second that motion.
Okay, roll call.
Roger, can I just ask, within that time, are some of the other issues going to be looked at by staff?
Yes, they will.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need to state it as publicly what the issues are, or do we not?
There were some concerns about the historic nature of the project, and in addition to the applicants properly noticing the site within the period of 2 weeks, staff is also going to look at some historic information. So, okay, roll call. Mr. Geragos?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Friedman?
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
And Mr. Malikian?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. That was our only announcement. We have nothing on the consent calendar, and so we can move on to the regular agenda.
Okay, would you like to, Ms. Laura?
I think that we should talk about that when we get to the minutes.
Okay.
Well, we'll do that. So next one on the agenda is 2 PDR 2008-010-B, 2954 Hermosa Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. This item was last reviewed by the board on June 5th, 2008, at which time the board voted to have the project returned for redesign with some additional requirements as well as comments and conditions. Just to recap for you, the property is the proposal is to construct 1,326 square foot addition to an existing house as well as a new two-car garage. This is the second time submittal for final review. The project case number is 2 PDR 2008-8-010-B. The property is located in the R1 floor area District 2 zone. Just to recap some of the comments and conditions the board had at the previous meeting. Number one, the material for the existing house are sufficient due to the modest size of the house. However, the new size and scale of the house requires a different treatment. There's an opportunity to create an improved architecture for the entire residence to be overall of higher quality. The second comment was enhancing the entry may be important in providing a sense of hierarchy. The north elevation should appear as the front of the house. Third comment was to provide a separate elevation that shows the property line wall, which is located along Ramsdale Avenue. Staff met with the applicant to address these items soon after the last meeting. The proposal in front of you, which is pinned on the left-hand side of the board, with the new and the old plans, reflects the changes that were made based on your comments and conditions. The changes are consistent to the overall style of the house, the inclusion of wood sidings, wood windows, and defined front entry show a marked improvement over the previous proposal. As such, staff recommends approval of this project with conditions.
Okay. We have one card. This is Artunian or Mais.
Actually, I'd like to make one correction. The applicant just clarified to me that the siding will not be wood siding, it will be the hardy plank siding, which will be paintable.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, board members and staff. My name is Mais Artunian, and my address is changed already, 2912 Sycamore Avenue, and now on 214. I made changes and a new design on this house. Front entry, a new front entry, it's bigger than before, and with new roof, hip roof, fiber cement siding, front and rear walls, shutters, front shutters on side of the windows, new planters in the front. And that's it. Whatever, if you have any question, I'm glad to answer.
Actually, I have one question. Do you have?
No, I was wondering where are the elevations which include the surrounding wall?
The first one.
The top one.
The top one. Oh, I see.
Oh, one more, we have a wood frame windows, new wood frame windows. It seal everything.
My question is, I didn't get an existing elevation plan. My question is, what is the actual, where you're adding, what is the height of the existing elevation from the lowest point to the highest point?
Existing,
Existing.
it's about, it's about 13 to 14 feet from the back side because it's sloping down.
So from 13 feet, we're going to
Yes.
26 feet by adding the addition in the
Yes.
back.
And the existing garage is more higher. We're gonna bring it more down to have a same level. Don't go past.
My question to staff, being that the existing, we have a much greater setback based on the existing height. Now that we're going to a higher height, which will go into the 20, 30 foot, that bracket, the 5-foot setback is adequate enough to meet the code?
Yes, it's only if it's greater than 30 feet, that's when it would require to provide
So
6-foot
even though that
setback.
the existing is substantially lower and the setback is more, now that we're going to a higher height or a taller building from the lowest to the highest, then the setback is fine.
Correct.
Okay. Right, that's all I wanted to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any more questions or anyone speaking, so I'll close the hearing.
Can I ask staff a question? In your recommendations, the third recommendation about the entry door, can you just explain that?
Well, staff felt that the entry door, whichever, because according to the material board that's provided and pinned behind you, it showed a fancier door with the glass opening in the center, the glass panel. Staff felt that the door should be simpler in design to further complement the overall style of the house.
Okay, thank you.
I just have just a question, because I think it comes up other times. When staff says window opening should be recessed, there's a lot of different explanations of what that is. What was staff's intent when it says the windows are recessed?
Well, typically, I believe in the past, in order to achieve a recessed window, the studs would have to be 6 by 6, I believe.
2 by 6.
2 by 6.
Right.
So,
I mean, you actually assume that there's a bullnose plaster to the jamb? Because that's, in my mind, more of a Spanish detail than this house. I'm just wondering what your intent was.
Not necessarily a bullnose edge surrounding the windows, but there needs to be a recess so that it's not flush against the wall from the exterior.
Well,
because the existing condition is...
that's the difference without a distinction.
If I may jump in, I think the general intent has been that the window frame and the glass itself is actually recessed from the facade of the structure. So there's some form, whether it's a bullnose turning of the plaster, like you would see in a Spanish-style house, or in fact a wood frame that provides that inset. That's always been, I think, the intent. So I think this house would be talking not about necessarily about a bullnose return with the plaster, but
if you're going to get a recess, then it would have to be, the face of the jamb would be at the stud width. I'm just wondering, because on the traditional ones, you would do like a brick mold or something, or a plaster mold, even on the older houses. But the window would still be a traditional window at the same orientation to the stud. I think it's more about how the window is constructed to get you the recesses, as opposed to how the window is placed in the wall.
right, that's correct.
Okay, because I'm just saying, the note has been before, and I think it reads like the window unit is recessed, as opposed to the window itself has recess in it.
Yeah.
So, just to clarify that.
It's an important point of clarification.
Yeah, because I think it matters in terms of intent.
Well, I think that's a really good point. I think one thing we need to try to do, and also if staff can kind of take this and make a, presentation and have an alternative ways of addressing certain details and certain window conditions that I think everybody's happy with and would understand what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Just like the situation that we're in. I think it's because of lack of really understanding how the construction of the window and how it gets assembled based on what's out there as a merchandise that people can buy and manufacturers produce. I think it's really important. I've always said that we should have a joint meeting on windows only,
Yeah, I think it's a good
and
idea.
have some reps here and be able to present to us what a vinyl looks like, what the fiberglass looks
Yeah.
like, and the rest of the the wood-clad fiberglass, wood-clad aluminum, and whatever.
So I think it's important to know whether it is the window unit recessed or that you want the difference in the window.
And I think, but just that, the detail of that window, to get that substantial recess in the window, that what what I'm trying to understand what the staff was trying to say, in order to get that window has to be at least 5 or 6 inch, sash depth, and I don't think that it's even possible to buy that. So,
Yeah.
I think, in terms of saying the window should be recessed, is getting after an intent that the window and the glass would actually be set back and set from the facade.
Which I think is great. All I'm saying is it should be understood that it is within the window unit there is a recess, not that the window is recessed to the wall.
Right.
Just clarification, and that's all. I mean,
Yeah. It could be.
it's a note we see a lot, and I just would want it to be clear to everybody what we're talking about. So.
And I think part of the intent of simply stating what the intent would be is that it allows for a variety of different construction techniques or different kinds of windows, and there's
Sure.
some flexibility when they come back after design reviews approval as to how they accomplish that.
Yeah, I just would want them to know what the minimum is, to know where they're starting from.
Right.
Can I say one other thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's nice. I'm glad that it came back. I think the revisions are great. The only question I have, just a small thing, I think you would see, based on the drawing, that corner window, like it's a real small item, but since we're talking about small stuff, I think it's very well done, by the way. But as you turn the corner, you're not going to be able to have shutters on that corner window, and the front looks so great with the windows and everything on the front and the shutters. You turn the corner, and it's unfortunate, and you're going to see it, so... I'm just wondering if those two windows could be done similar to how the ones on the front were done, so you could wrap it. Could be a possibility? Okay. That's all.
I'll go next.
Okay.
I wanted to thank the applicants because I think they really listened to us and they did a lot of work and came back with something that's very much, I think, what we were looking for. So I can fully support it. I'll make a suggestion. It's only a suggestion. It won't be a condition or anything like that. I'll just put it down as a recommendation just to free you up to think about adding some color to the shutters or the trim because it's very monotone. It's kind of gray and beige, and I think it will be much warmer and prettier house to add some color maybe to the shutters and to the trim. Just a recommendation, but I think it's very nice. So thank you.
Ms. Clark?
Yes, I'd also like to thank the applicant and the architect, because as our viewers look at this project, you could almost, if you look at the first plans, someone very non-discriminating say, well, what, past that, what's the deal? Next case. But I congratulate my colleagues for pushing for a redesign, and I compliment the architect for doing the work. And just the things like the shutters add so much of a detail. You think, well, some shutters, that could be the easiest thing in the world. But it does add an architectural detail that makes a pleasing house. This house was fine on the numbers. There were no gross pushing of the envelope. But it was a case of which we see many of, when you just say, boy, if they could just take another look at this and give it some thought, not our ideas, your ideas, but take that approach. And so I do compliment you, and I thank you for the work you did.
I have a quick question. Maybe I should...
If you want to come up.
Yeah.
Go ahead and open the...
Is this column structurally needed? Can it be...
No,
eliminated?
we don't need. We can have
This one and that
cantilever.
I think you need this one, but I'm wondering if you really need that one.
You're talking about just the one?
Yeah, just
Okay.
have this one and that one. I know this one is needed for the stairs to happen there.
Okay. We can
Because
remove
that's
that
why it
one,
looks
yeah.
like there are too many columns. I'm just
More open.
wanted to suggest, if it's possible, it will improve.
Yeah.
You just saved the owner $5,000.
Yeah.
No, it's
That-
gonna be
that's
more
all, but-
expensive.
But other than that, I think one more thing I just noticed, is it possible to make maybe, and my colleagues can comment on that too, it seems like this is a pretty prominent elevation looking out towards the main street.
No,
on the
it's
back.
not
No, I know, it's not a
Okay.
main street right adjacent, but you can see it from the which one is this?
There's a two-story multifamily building in the back.
Yeah, but it's visible, I don't know, this is...
Yeah, you can see, yeah.
Visible from
Yeah.
here.
Mhm.
I wondered if these windows can be a little bit larger, would it help with, is that a bedroom?
I just keep smaller because I need
Shield wall.
more bigger walls.
Oh, for the...
for shear wall.
Yeah, it's not a big issue, but I thought if it's a bedroom,
And,
if it's larger, it will help that side of the house that's visible from the other street, the one that runs here, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember.
I can.
But
make a-
that's another recommendation, but other than that, I think
I
everything
add the
looks...
shutters to looks more bigger. Before we didn't have that shutters.
Yeah, the shutters help a lot. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's all, and it looks really nice. I agree with everything that was said, and I think you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
I concur. I do agree with Geragos about the window. I think the other thing that it's going to do is going to give them an ample amount of shear wall right at the corner as it turns, so I think it definitely will help. So, matching these two windows. Other than that, let's entertain a motion.
Can we hear the comments from the staff, please?
The comments I have, first one was a suggestion to add some colors to the shutters and trims. And the second comment was to remove the middle column on the balcony. And the third one was larger windows along the wall facing the alley.
Well, that's a consideration.
Okay.
But there was another comment about the windows.
And then this one, what we're talking about is to, in lieu of these two, we would have something similar to this in the middle.
Okay.
With shutters.
With shutters.
So the money that you save from the column, you can put into the new shutters. It's a wash.
And if we make it,
The west wall would match the north wall of the living room.
What's that, Tim?
if we make it feedback either way on the other conditions suggested in the staff
I would
report?
I would support keeping the staff's recommendations.
Yeah.
Except as modified by you.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of them was window opening should be recessed, and you did make a modification to that.
Clarification.
That the windows do not necessarily need to be recessed from the wall, rather there should be some recess within the window unit.
Right, yeah.
And the others are new window openings should have wood frames and sills to match existing window openings.
Mhm.
Okay. And the entry door should be of solid wood of a simple design.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion to pass with the recommendations and conditions.
Second motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Friedman and a second by Mr. Geragos. Roll call, Mr. Geragos,
Yes.
Ms. Friedman,
Yes?
Mr. Sarifian,
Yes.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
and Chairman Lekian.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right. Next project, 2 PDR 2008-024-A.
The next item before you is located at 424 Ross Street, case number 2 PDR 2008-024-A. This project is submitted before you as the first time submitted for final review. The property is zoned R1, floor area District 2. The applicant is proposing to construct a 714 square foot first floor addition, as well as a conversion and addition to the underfloor area, which is unfinished right now, totaling 631 square feet. The total square foot increase will be 1,345 square feet. The proposal also includes a facade renovation to the front of the building. This home was built in 1922 in the craftsman style, and the proposed changes was reviewed by the historic preservation planner and found that the changes to be appropriate and consistent with the craftsman architecture. The home is located in Casa Verdugo, which is a woodlands neighborhood. This neighborhood is characterized by a uniform front yard setback as well as a well-maintained front yard. The site planning of the project appears to be generally the same as the existing. Most of the addition will be located towards the back as well as side of the house. The front porch will be pushed forward, so the existing setback will be decreased. However, the proposed setback will meet the required code at 25 feet. The existing 2 garage meets code and will remain as is. and also new landscaping will be provided as part of the overall project. Mass and scale appears to have been appropriately addressed as well. The building walls have varying planes, which is recommended by the design guidelines. The roof forms and roof designs are broken up, and the existing design elements have been incorporated into the proposal. While the facade will be modified, it will still be consistent with the Craftsman style, as this style will be retained. Some of these details and materials include the clipped gable roof, wood sidings, wood windows, as well as wood shingle siding, which are character-defining features of this style. The applicant appears to be successful in integrating the new addition with the existing house. The roof line, again, and roof design, fenestration patterns, exterior finishes reinforce the overall design theme in this case. The house, however, will be larger, but will not appear to be overly large on this site. Staff recommends approval of this project with conditions, and if you like, I can go over the conditions and as well as answer any questions you may have.
Yeah.
And the applicant and owners are here in the audience to present the project as well.
Is Jay still here?
Jay,
He was here just consulting on something, he's be back. Now he's back.
Okay, you may want to stick around. I was just wondering, if you don't mind, if Jay could comment about the brick veneer condition from the staff.
Sure. In general, since this house is trying to replicate Craftsman-style architecture, I don't think I've ever seen an original Craftsman building that has kind of a brick base coming up like that as kind of a wainscoting across the facade. So we thought it was a non-traditional approach, so we recommended another treatment there.
What would be the suggestion?
Just bringing the siding down toward the foundation. There's often some exposed foundation, perhaps. Sometimes there's a flare at the base of one of these houses, but since this, but we haven't seen brick like that.
Can you comment on the roof pitch and the height of the roof and how it's generally on a more of a Craftsman style homes, what we usually see is more of a shallower roof and a different, I understand that it's pretty much following what's there now, but now that the mass is being added on in the back and the higher pitch, any comment on that, how they come together? And now that if we eliminate the brick also, you're going to have almost a 2-story solid wall with a, I don't even know if it's a 5 and 12 or 6 and a 12 pitch roof.
And just correct me, the pitch is changing on the roof?
No, it's not, but I'm just saying that they are adding roof on top.
Yeah,
so.
and the unusual feature here is for usually the ridge line of that rear addition would come to the same height as the perpendicular ridge line of the historic house. And the fact that this comes up higher and creates that kind of triangular shape at the top of the roof is definitely an unusual feature. When we looked at this, we weren't sure if that was going to be usable space up there or not. If it was just going to be attic space, we certainly thought it could be brought down to align with the existing ridge line.
Okay.
One other thing, what we were talking about?
We should have the architect come up and start having the discussion with him. Hamlet? State your name and address, please.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Hamlet Zorabians. I'm the project architect. My office address is 3800 La Crescent Avenue, Suite 209, Glendale. I think the staff, basically, as far as the description of the work, they were very thorough as far as describing it. But what we have here is an existing bungalow craftsman bungalow, which we try to retain, obviously. There's also a unique feature to the site, which is a sloping site going back towards the backyard, and we try to take advantage of the space below floor area there. There is a existing underfloor area that they are using right now, but just very small area there for their child to play. It's like a playroom. But rather it's very, the ceiling is very low, so it's not actually usable and it's not accessible from within the house itself. So what we try to do here is actually introduce a concept which will be, the addition will be kind of a split level, if you will. So when you're coming in, you will have few steps going up, and then majority of the steps going down to an underfloor area there. So the underfloor area we have converted into a nice family room, which most needed. In their program requirements was one, to have a larger living room, and the family room for the children to play. So an internal stair is going to give that connection, so that's what we provided there. So we did not actually choose to go on the second story, complete second story on top of the existing house. We could have done that. Actually, across the street there are some other houses there, they're very similar houses that they have second story on top. However, this particular lot, I didn't want to really go in that direction because of the slope that follows and goes towards the backyard. If we were to choose to put the second story above the existing single story, we would have had much taller building, if you will. So we have really carefully attached and added to the rear of the project a couple of rooms there and the extension that follows. The brick that we have there, we were talking about some sort of a masonry, and they had different ideas. They didn't definitely like the river rock issue. I mean, they really didn't like the river rock. We wanted to go with either a stone or a brick, and we discussed it amongst ourselves with my clients, and they chose to go with brick. It's more of a residential look to it. So that horizontal line actually to me is really helping the facade on the sides, and it gives you an additional material and introduce another material there, and it's quite nice and complementary. I think you can find some bungalows in such that they might have incorporated some sort of a brick there. I mean, most of them have masonry, river rock, or some sort of a stone underneath, but we chose to go with brick. I don't particularly think that is extremely foreign. I think it just gives you the idea of having some sort of masonry below a certain line there. It helps us out with the finish, helps introduce another color there. The horizontal line brings down the verticality of the building itself, and also it helps not to. It helps us as far as when we have landscaping against the building. We just, as far as maintenance is concerned, it's a much better and durable material as far as maintenance is concerned. So we like to have that horizontal brick band to stay there. That's what we think, and I'm pretty much happy about it. If there is an issue with it, and definitely we have to comply with that particular requirement, then we have to choose some other material. To me, if we choose another material, it will be perhaps some sort of a stone. But the river rock is something that my client doesn't like to have there at all. So if it's either to continue the siding, wood siding down as the staff has recommended, or just to keep the brick there, which I think is nice. I don't have a particular problem with the brick. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the floor plan and.
Yes.
Okay, so the lower level is. Would you like to come up here?
Sure. Let me tell you. I haven't talked about one other thing while he's up there.
Yeah. Sure. Ask him or?
Yeah, it seems like the south elevation, is that correct? Because it seems like there's more windows.
No, it is.
No,
Which one?
I'm sorry, east elevation.
East elevation? This one here?
Isn't there, because there's a bathroom window and some other stuff from the plan it looked like.
These two windows are basically these two windows over here. And then
there's something in the bedroom though, isn't there? The front bedroom, bedroom 3.
Yeah. Well, this is the bedroom window, and these are the bathroom windows over here.
Yeah, but the bathrooms are on 2 different levels, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yes, they're high windows. It's because...
So one's a high window and one's a low window in the bathroom?
Yeah, but I made them in the same level.
outside they look at the
Yes.
same level. Okay, that's
Yes.
okay, all right, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I didn't want to have kind
No,
of...
that's fine,
introduce-
that's okay, I didn't understand how it works. The other thing was, it seems like that the roof isn't correct. Seems like you would see the gable showing, the sideways gable showing through. See this plane right here? Comes down here? Which means that you would see this gable coming back here. That isn't correct. That isn't correct right there. You'd have a valley coming back like that, which means your elevation would look better than it does now. It would look better, because I think you would see at least the top of that gable, and then this roof would come around.
Well, we are dealing with an existing roof itself.
No, I know,
in
but
a
if you look at it, see this slope here?
Yeah, that doesn't go directly down over there. It just basically,
Does it break pitch?
you mean this one here?
It breaks off.
Does it
Yeah,
break
it
pitch?
breaks up. There's a break
No,
pitch,
no,
yes,
here,
yes,
here,
yes,
here,
there is,
here.
there is. So over here, and then over here, there's a break. See, actually, this is in one level.
I know that.
It doesn't come back here.
Right, but what is happening here?
There's a wall there.
Now,
No, but this isn't one plane here. That means there's a rake wall happening?
Yes, see here, let me go back to here.
No, I think you're right. I think there's something...
Is this one plane? Is this all one plane?
This is all one.
Okay, well then, if this comes down in one plane, you're going to see the other side of this roof.
Okay,
Right?
see, no, this roof is in front. See,
Right.
this roof is in front that goes over there. So this, what you're seeing there,
Right. Listen to me, listen to me. You see this plane right here
Yes.
on the side? Okay, that's this plane.
yes, it is.
Okay? It's going to extend down here.
Yes.
Which means the roof that's behind there
Mhm.
is going to show.
You mean over here?
Yeah, so the back side of this roof is going to show. The back side of this piece of roof is going to show. Right? The back side of the roof. See right here, if you draw this down, there's roof behind here, this slope here and the slope behind.
Right.
Let me just
I'm
take-
trying to
I'm
visualize
trying to-
this because I'm trying to...
Look, if you extend this line through, okay, you're
when you
seeing
say-
the roof on the front,
Yeah, when you say extend this line through,
that's this plane.
okay, this plane comes up to here. You see what this is? This area over here that you see that break over
Yeah,
is
right.
over there. So you're saying,
Well, just watch. This plane comes through.
No,
Okay.
you're right, you're right.
Okay, this plane comes through, which means you're seeing the front roof,
okay,
and this ridge, you're seeing the back roof.
Backside of it.
The back side of it, which means you would see the back side here.
returning, you mean?
Right.
Okay.
You see, I'm just want,
I'm just- I
it's
gotta
gonna make it
look
look
at
better,
it.
it'll make it look better, it'll make it look better.
I'm looking-
You'll see this little gable end here of the existing house, and then this roof is gonna come down below it. That's all, just,
Draw that? No. it's
you got a pencil, I'll draw it. See, this comes through. Just small elements, small, I mean, I don't mind big deal about it.
Three-dimensional drawing is different.
Where's your little model?
It's right here.
It's not in this one.
I'm surprised that I didn't catch that.
You're gonna see this here, and then this roof's gonna come down below. You're gonna see the old roof. See, this piece right here of the old roof sticks beyond this plane. Right? So you're gonna see this piece,
I'm looking at it.
right? So this piece, it's gonna make it look better, right? So you did the design, it's nice. It just didn't draw that way. You're gonna see this old piece of gable
Uh-huh,
right here. This old piece of gable.
uh-huh.
Right?
You're talking about on this side?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, on the side of the house, you're gonna see that little piece of gable.
Okay.
Right? Clip gable, right? This piece right here,
But you know that this is not a ridge, you know that this is not a ridge. That's not a ridge.
it's a valley. There's a valley on the back side of here. There's a valley. This is not drawn
whole
right.
thing.
No, this whole thing is this line you see here is just denotes the different slope that we've introduced here. You know what I mean? So there's no
I'm
ridge
not talking,
there.
I'm not talking about that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not talking about that.
All right.
See this plane right here?
Yeah, that plane goes there and,
That is this plane right here. Do you agree?
yes.
That plane, okay. It's not, fine, everything's good. It's
Okay,
everything's fine,
I
everything's
understand,
fine,
I
everything's
understand what
good,
you're
everything's good. This piece right here is this piece right here.
This is what you're saying it needs to
No,
happen.
this.
No,
There's
this
a
side.
valley. What I'm saying is there's a
I
valley right
understand,
here.
look at this side, look at this side.
It's the exact same detail. Should be the same detail.
Okay, so there's a 45-degree
Yeah,
missing there, you're
that's
saying.
all. I'm saying it looks better. You're going to see this detail
On the other side.
on the other side.
No, we're there.
Exactly. That's all. No, I didn't make a big deal. I just
Okay.
I didn't clarify. It looks good. You did it
Okay,
nice.
now, to my question.
All right. Sorry.
This point is here, right? Is that where it is?
Yes, well, the stair stops over here. Yeah, it should be, because we're lining up this thing together.
Okay, so
In other
then,
words, and then this goes underneath the kitchen.
this goes underneath the kitchen.
Right,
So, right now, the existing wall is there,
correct.
and it comes around, and then this is being added on.
Because over here, there are some steps, existing steps, and things that we're
Which is that?
removing. All of these, yeah.
So you're actually filling this in?
Yes. Yes.
First floor, ground floor, and the second floor. So this
Yes.
elevation that we're looking at
Yeah.
is the...
It's not filling up.
It's this filling up.
Correct. Yeah, so for this, to this point over here, we don't have enough headroom, so we're not using, it's not usable. Only this area here becomes more usable, and that's what. So what we did here is actually we introduced a trash room right in there, where we didn't have so much of height there. Right here. So all this area here is not usable, it's just less than 5 feet, it's about 5 feet, 4 feet attic. But this is the main area that's we're adding for the family room. And that's here. And that what that does is actually when you have some light coming in from rear, so as you go step down to the family room, you'll be able to land right at the backyard. That's the intention.
The original house has a 3-inch siding. Is this going to go to 6, or you're keeping the 3?
No, we're keeping the same size.
The 3 size?
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's going to be brand new.
Yeah.
And then we have introduced 2 types of sidings here.
Next
Nice,
question,
very nice.
and I'm trying to understand this. We don't have a section, that's why.
Actually, I had a section
Here's
that
a section.
We have a section in the handout.
In
but-
this line.
On this one. Existing, I can put it in, so I'm trying to visualize this thing. So right now, oh, there it is. This is
looking that
down.
direction. That's it.
Okay. Your new addition on the second floor, is it higher than this?
Yes.
Where this is?
Yes, the floor, yes, because that's what
So
I did.
this is where...
I split it.
Okay, so what you've done is, this is where it is, and that's where the height of this
Correct.
was. So then by moving this, you move this whole thing
That's
up
right.
to there.
That's right. So that's what I was saying is the split level. When you're coming in, you're going up. So my bedrooms are over here, so I can get more usable space here for the family room. You know? That's why the windows are that way. So my windows are going to be higher than that, actually. So this, what that effect is because of this effect over here. So either I have to go below grade, let's say,
Well,
into a
you have a
basement.
9'6"
Yeah.
ceiling height.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Could you do like a 6-inch siding at the bottom and then go to the 3-inch and use the difference in the width of the siding? Or,
Oh, you mean over here?
yeah, as a contrast?
Well, we can. I mean, if we were given some sort of an option whether to do that or go to a stone masonry, because it's something that early in the game we were discussing, and we like to have that stone there. We really feel that because of the, weathering factor here,
yeah.
it's much better to have some sort of masonry underneath. And this is actually introduced on the side of it, and it breaks it horizontally. I think it's a pretty nice feature. Overall, we're looking at the building, but it's, I mean, if I bring this wood siding down, I mean, it's going to be looking more vertically to me. So anyway, that's what. But we can do that. I mean, that's
Yeah,
one
it's
will be
just
one of the
siding,
options.
yeah.
I mean. So we've done that already over here, where we
Right.
changed,
How about if you change it to the vertical, shingle like at the base? So it's
at the base.
from vertical to horizontal to vertical.
It's okay, but again, it's the maintenance issue. I mean, you paint it, the wood, it deteriorates. You know what I mean? So we prefer go to masonry. So if the brick is something that is foreign to you, then I can actually introduce some sort of a stone there. Brick was more.
I personally, and, if you have questions, then maybe we can start a discussion about this. But to me, when I look at this, I think it's beautiful. And I think the reason that it's pleasing is that it's full of details. Everything is proportioned to a human scale. All the details, all the windows, this stops right at the door height. You have a nice detail here with the lighting, and then you have support, craftsman details there, and the window and so forth. And for some odd reason, the brick works with this. But then as you come around here, you have a very tall elevation without having it. And I think that was the reason that I think this was pushed into this elevation. I think subconsciously you didn't like this solid in wall, so that somehow you wanted to break this up. And the reason that I was asking was that this was an added piece, and maybe because it's an added piece, maybe by pushing or pulling the front or the bottom or the upper level, you may be able to create a line here, and this way the scale is reduced, and the siding details may be played with different types of siding there, and so forth. So maybe that you have a little bit more of a pull out of this to create this line across. But that we can discuss. But I think, to me, craftsman detail and craftsman architecture, it's all about detailing, not about solid surface and ample amount of siding. And I think this definitely resolves the detail, and I think the front is done well, and I don't have a problem with here. I think my concern is here and all of this massing, so that's where we can.
Should we maybe?
Yeah, let's go ahead and have a discussion on it. Maybe
So I think the property owner would also like to speak.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have a card for him, so if you can't, well, you can fill it up later. You can go ahead and.
I'll fill it out, even though I had to fill the card out.
That's fine, you can do that. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christopher Gonzalez, a homeowner. I've owned the home for 11 years, been a resident in Glendale for 35 years, and watched the city do a lot of change. And when I bought the house, I'm only the third owner. The original owner built the home in 22, lived there for approximately 10 years, and the next owner lived there for 60-plus years, and they just both passed away recently. And I made a goal when I bought the house, for one thing, to keep it the way it was supposed to be kept. Historical. I'm a historical guy. I'm an East Coast guy, born in the East Coast, came here as a 7 or 8 year old, and have been just intrigued with the architecture. I'm a lawyer by day and a pseudo-architect by night, and I have no idea what I'm doing. But I've put about 2 years of research into this, and I've known Hamlet for probably 5 years. And initially spoke to him when we first bought the home and just didn't have the money to kind of do what we wanted to do. And the concept really comes from that East Coast flavor. I know there's a comment, and no disrespect to anyone in the city, and I'm not the architect, I'm not an expert, with the concept of the base. From a practical standpoint, the base portion of the home is problematic for us. From a water standpoint, we sit on the south side of the street. Much of the water comes up and abuts against the home on the east side of the property. We actually had a problem with the garage, when we first bought the home, actually almost fell over. We're required to build a new garage because of the water problem we had. And the reason being is that the base of the home on all sides, especially the east side of the home and the north and the east side, kept pushing against it, and it's now caused some deterioration. It's now seen on this side, which is the side you see on the west side facing, that's causing some deterioration on that side. When we rebuilt the garage, I think about 7 years ago, 2002, that was one of our first goals, to make sure the facade and the base was built enough. We did not put a base around it in any capacity, just because it wouldn't match the current home. But the idea with the brick particularly is many of the East Coast homes, which the original owner, I understand, was from and where he built this from, he really built it out of a Sears Roebuck book, to be perfectly honest with you. And many of those homes built in the 20s and in the early 30s, the form of them from the East Coast side of it, and they were West Coast state, was the idea of this brick kind of almost veneer type, in which the brick actually came out, kind of an extension like this table, and then there was a drop down with some sort of aspect. Hamlet we talked about potentially putting on a stone. A stone, in my mind, is more modern in the sense of very hip today. We see a lot of these new structures going up. There's one now in La Cañada, a prime example, where they're really kind of using that stone in a more of a modern texture. There's some brick veneer that's located there, yet right next door there's some stone aspect to it that almost kind of offsets the traditionalness of it, and I think that's what they're trying to do in that kind of idea. I know it's not in Glendale, but it's kind of the idea what a lot of these places are doing, in which they're trying to restore it back to a historical idea, and that's the whole premise for it. Is different in the sense maybe per se than a river rock, which with all intent and purposes are very far in between in Glendale. In the north area you may find them Tahunga and so forth, but not in the area where we are because there wasn't a river basin at that time. So my point in coming up is explaining that I understand where the gentleman comes from and wanting to maybe go with a siding, a clad siding all the way down. But from a practical standpoint, I think it's going to be problematic from a standpoint of maintaining the home and also for the integrity of the home in the future as it relates to maintaining the water issues that deal with it. We've done everything we can, underground piping and so forth. We have a pump that pumps the water back to the street, so it keeps everything away, and we've done everything we can. This was the extra element that can actually help us build a bigger base around the home and then protect it with some masonry. So it's really a thought-out process. I don't want you to think that it's a person who's coming here and just saying, let's do something different. It's not the idea. Much of the stonework around the home, driveway, back area is all in brick. In the red, old school red brick. Nothing, no new brick. Nothing bright red, no fire engine red, nothing, real blatant. It's very old school, weathered, looked. And that's the idea of putting it up. The veneer term may be a little of a misnomer, but it's really an actual piece of, a brick. It'll be a half brick maybe, put on a much more, a face brick. I mean, the veneer is kind of
not veneer.
Yeah, veneer. Veneer, I think, is, and we debated the word. I'm not sure that's the right description. It's really a brick.
It's a full brick.
Yeah. It just happened to be cut. Excuse me, honey, just one more minute, okay? We can't put it. Sorry, guys. So I just want to make sure clarity of that. It's kind of a big issue for me because I've really gone through. I mean, this is not an overnight deal. This has been years in the making for me, and then just finally come to fruition in the last probably 8 or 10 months. And then Hamlet was the one who's able to really put our vision on paper, which I have always had in my mind, but never been able to describe it by my own little chicken scratch drawing. So just if that helps you in any capacity, or if there's any questions you have generally, I'm always here to answer as well. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask one question?
Oh, sure.
Do you think that if the brick becomes more rustic, you can entertain that as an...
In a sense of rustic, by what? What do you mean by more rustic?
For example, I think the river rock kind of mimics the earth, kind of becoming a base for this very well-crafted house. But I think the problem with the brick, the way it's kind of characterized and rendered, is that it's a little bit too precise. If you
a little bold, I can understand what you're kind of saying.
Yeah, if you think about a brick wall that has maybe some broken bricks that turn sideways and...
That was the idea, actually. The idea is more of a, I'm not going to say haphazard, somewhat, or patchwork kind of a concept, but it's, the premise is, like I said when I came up here, the premise is to maintain a 20s or 30s look in 2008 and beyond. The house needs some repair. It's the perfect time. The idea is exactly what you're saying. If that's what you ask us to do, no problem. In fact, I'd rather have it look older than newer. I think with the idea of a stone, that's a problem. I think that's not going to do the look. I think a river rock will definitely actually, to be honest with you, just because of the community and the area, it's a very small street, Ross, if you all know, maybe 20 houses on the block. It will really take away from that idea in the sense that it doesn't just fit. We are probably the only one-story home on the block, and we were maintaining a one, so I call it a 1.5 story because of the split. But we're probably going to end up being, in the end, one of the families that are going to really restore the home as opposed to take it to another and almost different level. We're trying to restore that street. I think we're married in the first home on the block, actually, too. So I agree with you. Whoops, excuse me. I have no problem with some sort of patch, kind of haphazard, whatever you want to call it, look that it keeps that rustic look. If rustic's a term, then rustic's fine with me. Not as clean is fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners,
If I can add something to my comments about the brick that may be a happy medium.
I want to close the public section first, and then go ahead.
Okay. A very traditional treatment that I forgot to mention that may meet your requirements of having a masonry base would be a stucco treatment at the bottom, which will bring kind of a less textural, smoother, more neutral treatment that's very traditional and one of the options.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start talking about this. And
Yeah, I was going to say, if, one option would be to not do veneer on the front section as it is now, and a very traditional is a very heavy dash plaster that you could do just at the lower area. I mean, that would be an option, and then you could either flare or do something with the siding up to that point, but not bring it out around the front. I mean, would be an option that would be very in keeping with the style. I mean, because there isn't, a wainscot on the existing house. So that could be one option. But the brick should definitely be, if you guys are leaning towards a brick, it would definitely be a full brick and not veneer, because a used veneer, there is no used veneer really, even if you slice it, it's not going to look right. So it would be a full dimension brick. And there might be clinkers or irregular laid, so.
yeah,
I appreciate what the homeowner's trying to do and, what the architect's trying to do. I think, and I understand Mr. Platt's suggestions, but I think that by the time they're finished with this renovation, the house is going to have lost a lot of its historic integrity, no matter what. So given that, I think that the choice of the brick, I think it looks nice, just bottom line. I agree with the suggestion of making it more rustic. I also definitely agree to not use a veneer. Yes, it's a hybrid, it's not going to be traditional craftsman, but they're changing the front facade, they're doing a lot of other things that I think will make it so that if, push came to shove and you looked at it on a survey, no matter what, it's going to come down that it's lost a lot of its historical, integrity in that sense. And I appreciate that they're trying to at least retain the old look and the things that they like about it, and that it'll be a character house. I can understand about the maintenance issue. I think that the brick looks better than a stucco would look, even though that's the more traditional treatment. I understand also the point that the river rock maybe isn't seen in this area as much. There may be one or two houses that use it, but not a lot. Someone on my block actually just did a renovation of a ranch house, and they sort of did this, where they did shingles and they kind of put on some craftsman details, and then they also put a lot of brick on. It's a hybrid. It's a little odd if you really know the historic style, but it looks nice. And, bottom line is I think that this looks nice. Mm-hmm. My concern's not with the brick. I would go along with the brick with those two conditions. I'm a little concerned really just with the height of the addition in the back, the way that it joins with the rest of the house. Now, I don't know when you were up on the board and you guys were going through your architect kind of things of looking at the plans and ways that I didn't quite understand whether that would address some of those concerns. But just the way that the front portion of the house, the original portion, meets up with the back looks kind of, I'm not sure about that. And also I have a similar concern with Mr. Malekian with some of those sort of back sides being very large looking, and maybe there's a way of treating them and softening those sides. What's shown now in shadow is really only about 6 inches of step back, so I'm not even sure you're going to get that relief, from those that side as you go back. I mean, it looks on the rendering like it's a big distance, but it's actually, it's 6 inches. I'm talking about all along here, yeah. So, that's my concern. I'm not so concerned with the brick. I think the detailing is nice. It's some of the massing. I'd like to hear what the more knowledgeable members of the board think, but I'm with you with the brick.
Mr. Carter?
Yes, I'd like to comment. Actually, one of the chores of being on this board is, in good faith, you should go visit the sites of all the buildings you're considering. And I actually had the opportunity to go look at Ross, and it's a great street. It's got a very diverse, actually, architectural style. And this project, if it was approached insensitively, since it's right in the middle of the block, would be really, really problematical. So I compliment the Gonzalez family, you and your wife, for bringing this project to us in this manner. When I read when the comments were pointed out about the brick, and you look at the renderings, because the red is poppy a little bit. You do become aware of, perhaps that is a detail that's not consistent with a real craftsman, thorough craftsman design. But the discussions we've had here about it being a true brick and sort of distressed, and it's probably not as vibrant as the rendering says, puts me quite at ease with that detail. Mr. Malikian and Ms. Friedman have brought up the rear elevation and the massing in that, and I'm going to listen to their comments on that with interest. But overall, I'm in great support of this project, and I think it's a good design.
I also think it's a very nice design. I'll go over some of the comments. I'd like to start with one of the comments that the staff made with regard to the little gable roof on the west side. I think it's this one, if I'm not wrong.
Correct.
I think probably this doesn't need to be clipped like the rest of them, because this is a different. This is almost an extension of this larger piece, just popping out. If you don't do the gable or the clip at the right angle, it will look very odd. So it's a different condition. So I think that's fine. So then one comment that I had, it seems like somehow this front brick has more height, and somehow it dives into the corner, and then maybe a different height starts. I wonder if you might consider simplifying that and leaving it a single line, or like the rest of, like this side. Somehow that seems like a simpler. I think this might stand out, the two coming together at different heights. So I might just consider that. And other than that, I think the rustic base will help the clash between what's so imprecise and rustic, and once the house starts above that, it becomes crafted in a very precise way. So I think that would be to the benefit of the building. And the color, I think, if it's a bit muted from the very red, I think it's just a matter of rendering, but the real thing, I think, will look much nicer. Other than that, I think I'm glad you haven't built it a two-story house, because two-story bungalows don't. I learned it in a lecture that two-story bungalows don't exist. It's 1.5 at the most, so you're on the right track. That's basically it.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a beautiful house. I think there's definitely a great effort put in, and I agree that certain things need to be done. I don't have a problem with the brick, but I think what Alex suggested, that to be more rustic, that's one option. There's a lot of different examples around town. There's many houses along Orange Grove and Pasadena that you can go there and get examples of brick, how it's been proposed and how it's been laid out. And I think brick can be a essential part of the detailing of the house. As I mentioned when Mrs. Zarabian was up here, I really like the way that it's been, the effort that has been placed at the south elevation and the north elevations. And I think as you turn from the front, as it turns around and go back to the point that the existing house jogs substantially back where the addition has happened, I think the window placement and how the detailing and the roof, how it comes, and the proportion of the brick versus with the horizontal sidings and then the shingle siding, all of that proportion works for me. I think as you go beyond where the addition is happening, just due to the function that I understand that the window is not necessary, just because of the function that you have. But I think there's definitely room to be able to jog the second floor and the first floor somehow to create break up the mass. And that may be that, and I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think by having that almost look like a two-story solid wall of siding that come down and then arbitrarily cutting and coming to a brick line where it doesn't really meet any of the brick elevations or the points that comes around, I think that needs to be kind of thought of, just like the front and the back has been kind of addressed. And same thing with the east elevation. I'm more concerned about the west elevation because it has a driveway and it would be more visible than the east elevation. But I think by just working out a specific line on the west elevation, I think that will definitely help that little section there. One other, just a quick comment that I have is that the perspective does not show the addition of the roof that it's being done on the actual house, the addition of the raising of the roof line on the perspective. So that, right now, as it stands, compared to the proportion of the facade versus what the roof is, when you look at it right now, it pretty much one-to-one. So whatever you have as a roof, you have as an elevation. But as you do the addition, the roof automatically becomes much higher. So I think what I would do is, if there is a possibility and way of looking into the additional roof pitch that is being added on, I think it's going to really hurt the front elevation of having that pitch roof that it comes up. So I'm not sure what the answer is for that. And maybe that you may want to add a certain detail there, and maybe, I'll have you come up and we can talk about that. But I think a different pitch or something.
They changed the pitch here.
Well, if I may, I'm going to show you what we had done before. This was a different treatment before.
That was my question too. I mean, this doesn't show what's going on.
You need to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, because of the certain angle is taken. Yeah. We had shown that louver there in the beginning. It was cleared up, so we can show the extension of it. So that's because of that. It's cleaned up, but it's not showing that. But it's just a very small portion of it that shows that. But if you look at it, this was the very first addition that we did. So that's the first submittal that we did. So we had because of the fact that we had some sort of a roof differential there. So what we did there, actually, we put another vent there to treat that area there. You see what I mean? So the roof doesn't have that portion added to it. So that was the very beginning. And then afterwards, when we came back, we corrected that because of the comments that we received. So the roof was integrated into the existing, if you will, right at that portion. And then the thing is that with this scale I don't think we're going to be able to see so much of that roof, especially it's going in an angle. I mean, you have to be a certain distance away so you'll be able to see seriously, because the thing is that this two-dimensional elevations, that it's not at the right eye level. So when you're coming from the street, you just don't see that roof. It's not a vertical piece, but it's more of an angle. So a couple of things I can do. Well, first of all, on the side, Mr. Mayor, to address your concern, what I can do, I can introduce another horizontal line, continuation of the floor line, which is a white trim. So that's definitely going to cut it. We can actually, push in the bottom portion of it. I really didn't necessarily like that.
I don't think it's really necessary to push it in. I think what I would do is I would actually pull it out.
The upper floor.
The upper floor, or increase the upper floor, and somehow
And then put some sort of a brace or something, a wood brace or something in where...
like the same details they used
Yeah.
as a balcony.
Well, we can do that.
I mean, if you have the room to increase the square footage, maybe that may be the, I think just having, and especially that the driveway is actually sloping down, so it's not really helping the situation of having a much taller elevation than what it is, and especially not having, and then also not having the windows, and so it's just, you get a one solid, and, and...
Is there a reason for no windows on the lower floor, or was that discussed?
We hear all this privacy issues and all of these things.
No, on the lower floor, on the lower floor.
On the lower floor, because I have a void area there. What I can do, I can introduce another vent that you see that on the left-hand side, I have a vent there introduced. I can actually introduce it on the right-hand side to break up.
Don't be afraid of adding windows. I don't think that this
On the
board has
lower
been
floor,
inclined, even
Yeah.
on the second floor, I don't think that we've been inclined to be telling people to not have windows on
Well,
second floor.
what I'm saying is naturally I've oriented the rooms towards the backyard because that's the most nicest way to do it, because you don't want to be able to see the driveway necessarily. That's why I don't have a significant window there, but I do have those two windows, the fenestrations. Now, if we need to add another window, I can do that. It's not an issue. As a condition, I will accept it to just add another window in even
It's
the
for light,
lower.
it's not really
Yeah.
view, it's just light.
That's
in the
fine.
room.
I understand. If that is a concern, because I think also when the landscaping is full grown, we kind of shy away from large bushes and everything to show it to you. We wanted to see the building. But I think the landscaping, when it's luscious and everything, it just covers most of that area there. But we can definitely introduce a window, and definitely I can introduce a horizontal wood piece, which will actually carry and continue the floor line of the terrace that you have there. It's not much of a terrace, but I mean, that projection that we have there. So that's going to give you that horizontal look. On the other side, however, you're very close to the other property. You don't actually see it at
I'm
all.
not concerned about that one, and, obviously
Yeah.
I am, but I know that it's not going to be visible
Yeah.
from,
And again, for the sake of simplicity, I didn't want to really necessarily go in more articulation in certain areas,
See, the thing
because
is-
this is the existing building.
Yeah, the craftsman architecture is not simple. It's
Sure.
more of detail-oriented, and it's a lot of handcrafted elements there.
Mm-hmm.
And having just a solid siding, I don't think that really is kind of an
Sure.
oxymoron there.
Well, that's why we
Simple
we kept the
craftsman.
porch, we kept the door, the entry door, a very craftsman look, the tapered wood column. You're talking about all the clipped roofs and everything that just mimics whatever it was there, and we try to stay true to it.
I don't think there's any argument about the front and the back elevations at all.
Yeah, on the side we can, like I said, I mean, it's okay. I mean, if
I
that's
think
the
you understand.
I can do
And
that.
I think you can work with staff on that.
I can do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I think if we're done, if no one has any other comments, then I'm prepared to make a motion to pass it with conditions and considerations. Maybe you can read them back, rather, because I think there's going to be a whole long list, and we need to also be specific about which are conditions and which are considerations. And certainly, we'll allow, I think Ellen will be, or whoever will be working with the applicant on some of these. One thing we didn't mention that I'd just like to make is a recommendation, a consideration, which is to add one or two small trees in the front, like crepe myrtles maybe, or just some, because right now there's no trees in the front. I think it'll look nicer. And you can do that without us recommending it, but... Okay.
Okay, some of the comments staff heard is that certainly brick appears to be appropriate from the board perspective, as long as they're full dimension bricks and that they are rustic or used in appearance. Second comment is that I heard that from Mr. Zarifian that staff comment number 5 he does not agree with, so we'll remove that about the clip gable along the west elevation. The next comment concerns the side elevation, particularly the west elevation, where this large wall, building wall, where detailing on that wall is sparse. So some of the suggestion made by the board was to pull the second floor out and possibly add additional windows on that wall as well. And the other comment was concerning the roof pitch that is beyond the front covered entry.
I'm sorry, can you back up? So the way that we're going to be wording the side elevation comment is that it's a condition, but with those particular solutions as recommendations, but then the conditions will allow staff to decide when that condition is
If I
met.
may jump in, a couple of thoughts. I think I would phrase it, probably to differentiate the floor line on the east and west elevations.
Well, I think that the real
That's one of the
basic comment
possibilities.
is to either add detailing or change the massing so that those two sides appear less massive,
I wasn't that
less...
concerned about the east elevation, but if they do find a solution that it's simple enough that they can address the east elevation, I'm happy with. But I think the west elevation is more I'm concerned about than...
There was at least 2 or 4 comments that I heard. One was the sort of small cantilever of the upper floors.
As a potential.
As a
Possible
potential
solutions
solution, one of many.
Introducing some windows at the lower level.
Can I ask you a question? If I convince you that maybe the simplicity of the wall is okay, you would change your mind?
They should be doing that, not you. Yes, go ahead.
But because I kept looking at it, and because the house has planes that move in and out, and if we start to kind of express horizontals in the mix, I think it will kind of. I'm wondering if it will definitely work for the house, because the way I'm reading it is this, that there is a base that has a certain proportion that is a function of how much protection you need, base of how it comes to the ground. So that kind of steps as the side step. So that's how I kind of rationalize why it's certain height here and a certain height there. It seems like proportionally that they're proportional to each other. I think if this starts to attain more detail, it will kind of make these kind of front, side, back less of events, kind of as you discover as you go around the building. So I think the calmness of this is in favor of these kind of more crafted pieces.
I completely understand what you're saying, and I think I would agree with you if one thing happened. I mean, I'm not saying they should do this, but I'm just saying I completely agree if this was solid, to emphasize this. But imagine you take this whole thing and lowering this enough that this doesn't become a 2-to-1 ratio in compared to what it is, and then you have all this detail happening, but then this is a very small little flat plane with the roof happening here with the all solid siding, and I think that's when what you're saying, I think to me would work great. But now what they've done is, as you started your presentation before, that a craftsman, 2-story craftsman house, and to me this is a over-exaggerated 1-story craftsman house of the back without having the windows, without having any scale to this mass. By putting these two, for me the mass and the scale, the proportion has been lost.
So you're saying if the windows get larger?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that's what's. I think this is beautiful. I think this is done great. I think this is done well. I think this is perfect. Even though it's a 2-story, I think everything has been detailed. Everything has its own place. But I think once this happens, you have a barn, and it's not a barn. It's a house. It's a 2 to 1.5 level house, and I think that 1.5 level is lost. And I think by bringing that proportions in, I think it will start working with the details, and it may start competing with that once it's done, and I don't know how it's going to get detailed. And maybe at the end of the day, Alan decides that, you know what, it's really not working out, and I think we go back to this, and we say that this is fine. But I think that exercise needs to be done and find different solutions to see if we can address this, to me. And you guys can
I think what you
argue
said
with me,
that's
but
really,
disagree.
that's really important, that hasn't been said before, is that the issue really is an issue of scale. I mean, I think that you hit it right on the head when you said that the scale of the front, it changes so dramatically, and that by having the same size windows and everything else, you're really exaggerating that. And you're right, it does look a little like a different type of building that's grafted on. So, you know, maybe we can find a way to word it that addresses that, of trying to make that addition in the rear feel scale-wise the same as the part in the front, so it doesn't feel like two separate buildings, to ease that transition whatever way you guys can come up with.
Yeah, I don't doubt there is definitely a solution for it, but I think maybe the ultimately, when the exercise is done and when the architect meets with the staff and they come up with the solution, then maybe the end result is going back to what it's here. So I'm not sure, and I really don't know what, but I really feel that the effort that has been placed in the rear elevation, the front elevation, and even half of the side elevations, I think is done extremely well. And by creating that tall mass without having any scale to it, I think it starts affecting the front and back. But that's something that, you know, and we don't need to come back.
It could be as simple as windows.
It could be the solution could be just a simple window. It could be just an adding a band of a side, a different siding right where what the architect suggested, just adding that line right where the elevation is. But
I think I'd like to say to the applicant and the architect, I think what you're witnessing here is that is really where the money is in your project. You want to get some square footage out of that area. And I guess from the reaction of my colleagues, you notice that it is noticed. That is the bigger part of the chicken. So if, combined with our comments and conditions, if you can work with staff to ameliorate that feeling, I think that's what you're hearing here.
If I may try and articulate what the intent of the board is, I was writing on something to the effect of evaluate the facade proportions on the east and west elevations to correspond better with the original house. And if you'd like, we could include some, such as cantilevering the first floor, adding windows, the wood trim, some of the other suggestions that were included. But I think I understand the board's intent, and my guess is that the architect does as well.
Okay. What are the other?
I also heard comment about the height of the roof for the rear portion of the house. I didn't quite get what specifically the board wanted the applicant to address.
Which one was it? I'm sorry?
The roof.
The roof, the height of the roof that's at
Was
the
your
rear.
comment?
No, I was just making a comment on the perspective is not really presented properly as what the elevation is showing. So the architect showed what originally was drawn as, and that's where the discussion went. I'm not asking him to change that. I'm not worried about that. I'm just more worried about the solid wall that I think that's going to address all of that.
And the last comment was to add some trees in the front yard.
There was one other comment, which was about the brick,
The base, the brick base.
about this portion of it, maybe being brought down.
So that
when
it'll end at the same
So that when it turns
height.
the corner,
Okay.
it doesn't have that weird jog where you
Okay,
kind of wonder
actually-
what's real.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman. I had that comment, but just didn't remember to verbalize it. Yes, thank you.
And
Also,
the brick veneer is not a veneer, it's actual brick.
Full dimension brick.
With a transposed weather cap brick, not just the running brick stop.
The staff report had 5 conditions. I think we have clarity on the first and the last. How about number 2, 3, and 4?
Put it away, I thought we were done.
Well, I agree with number 3. I don't know if it's difficult or possible, but I, think that if that can be done, it would be better.
It changes the rear facade, that's the issue, I think. The pitch on the rear would change, that's the difference.
What, number 2?
3.
Number 3.
Number 2 is fine with me.
To lower the ridge, you're going to change the pitch on the rear elevation.
Well, again, that's something I think staff could work with them on, and if it's achievable, then they can do it.
Yeah, I
lower
wonder,
the better.
I think probably the floors have to be lowered or in order to achieve substantial difference.
Yeah, the pitch
If you
would
do
have
it
to
by the
change.
pitch.
That's what I'm saying.
If you only do it by the pitch, it's not going to happen.
That's what I'm saying. The proportion of it would not look the same. The gable would not be the same.
If perhaps we should eliminate that condition, and we can look at options when the architect comes in to talk about the facade to see what we can do.
My only concern about the whole roof issue is just that I'm not sure, just from the whole discussion of what's accurate, what's not accurate, I'm not really clear on how this is all going to look and where it is at this point. So that's difficult for me to...
The elevations are drawn right, so the perspective is just missing that little... The elevation, it happens, so...
So you all would like to include
I'll go along
condition
with-
2, how about condition 4?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Just for our clarity.
Okay, so I think I made a motion, I'll make a motion to approve with these conditions and recommendations.
I would second.
Okay.
Of course, if I may interject, of course, there's also the record of decision that's listed in the staff report that would also be part of the record of approval in addition to the conditions.
Well,
That's on the final page.
we're striking number 1.
No, that's after the
After the
conditions, the
condi-
site
recommended
planning, the
conditions.
mass and scale. Are you fine with that draft record of decision language?
Let me ask you how to address this.
Well,
Rather, perhaps we should read through it in the record, just
The 3 sections?
if the chair would like that. I see
that would be
everybody's
fine.
diligently
Read
reading
that,
right now, but...
I think we did make some comments on the landscaping for the site planning, so I'm not sure if we include this, does that mean that we agree with us, or...
It's a question. Anything we said in the conditions, if they're at variance with these notes on site planning, mass and scale, and building design, I guess we would opt for our conditions to...
Of course.
We could just add the landscape design as conditioned.
Okay. Because, well, the reason, I didn't mean to be facetious, because we did have some notes about the mass on the side elevation, the appearance of massing.
Were the addition of the 2 small trees a condition or a,
It's just a recommendation.
okay.
Well, of course, the record of decision would also include all your conditions, so that would address those issues.
Okay.
I'm not, the decision, the record of decision, is kind of contradicting what the...
The conditions we've laid down?
conditions about the brick. Right now, it's saying that as condition, proposed architectural details and materials are consistent with craftsman style, but then over there, you guys are saying that brick veneer based on craftsman style is generally not consistent with overall style.
Right, so that should probably be revised.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys can revise some of this language and we can vote on it along with the minutes next time?
But it
That's
has to
the
be done
concern?
now.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
No?
We can approve the project and not approve the...
I think we could probably do that, but
I don't think, as regards your concern about the brick, I think the existing sentence, since the reference to the brick has been removed from the condition, it's no longer implied here that that's one of the findings here.
Okay.
as conditioned, meaning your conditions now.
But just for argument's sake, if you would have agreed and not changed the conditions that you guys had, then what would have happened?
Yeah, I mean, you did make some conditions about the materials, such as muted red brick.
No, but what I'm saying is if we would have followed and agreed with you on the brick veneer that it's not consistent and we should remove that, and then we would come and record
The record of decision language probably should be amended at this meeting.
At this meeting,
Yes.
okay, all right. So, okay, then we'll just leave it, and then the only thing that we would add is on the site planning, we would add the landscape design as conditioned. And other than that...
Were there other conditions besides the 2 trees?
That's not even a condition.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
I didn't hear any.
I didn't hear any conditions on the landscaping aside from the recommendation to add 2 small trees.
And that's...
That's it?
I'll keep it as a recommendation, for me, recommendation. Is there a motion? Is there still
Okay, the motion and a second.
Motion by Ms. Friedman and second by Mr. Carter. Roll call, Mr. Geragos.
Yes.
Ms. Friedman,
Yes.
Mr. Serafian,
Yes.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
and Chairman Lekian.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Me. If this is what the new administration's going to be like, with these children running around everywhere. See ya.
All
right, so we're now to the minutes.
Yeah, approval of minutes, July 17th, July 31st, August 14th minutes were listed on your agenda. They are not ready, so you don't need to act on those.
So this is where Ms. Friedman had some comments.
I have some comments. It's a combination of minutes comments and sort of oral communications. I just want to be so bold as to address the public a little bit, and also to, at the same time, ask the staff, as I look at these minutes, to maybe reword them. I was confused at the meeting that we had on, what was the date? On July 17th, a little bit when we had the project at 3522 Foothill Boulevard, which came in front of us as a preliminary. My confusion had to do with basically the procedure of what our job was in a preliminary review. As far as we were instructed by staff, and my understanding was that our job was to basically make comments and nothing else. It was very clear to us that we were not approving or not approving the project, that it was brought in front of us just to get comments. But at the end of the day, despite, I think, our best efforts to explain that, it somehow got translated or disseminated to the world as us approving this project forward. And I want to make it very clear for anybody who's watching or who follows us or anybody who's concerned about this project that we were not approving that project. We were giving our comments on the building. And I want to go one step further and just say to people, because I know there's a lot of concern in the community about this project, that we share your concerns. We shared all of your concerns about this project, and I think that if you watch that meeting again on tape, you'll see that we really were very concerned about the project as presented and tried to make as many comments as we could to them constructively for them to go back and completely rework it. We were not expecting and are definitely not expecting to see the next time anything that resembles that building. We're expecting to see a completely different project and something that we hope would be more successful and would be met with a lot less reservations both from us and from the community. We share the community's concern about the massing of that building, about the height of that building, and everything else. And I just want to make that really clear so that people understand that we're not passing that building through, and we don't expect to see that building back again. And please, if you guys have any different take, let me know.
Actually, that was going to be my comment on the because I seconded the motion, so I guess I take some responsibility. But a couple of things, it's specifically that issue that it became these conditions, and I wasn't the one that I probably should have spoke up more about was, historical style would be inappropriate for this building. I don't believe that, and if I knew that was going to be written as a condition, I would have made it more of an issue about that. So I think historical styles can be done appropriately and nicely, and it would be perfectly appropriate for that project. So I would like to see that line removed out of here, because I don't think that was the intent of what we were discussing. Now, if you guys think otherwise,
Did we put that as a condition?
I don't know that it was I mean, conditions that surprised me when I was reading the minutes. That
Actually, I think that the last comment, which reads, "The building should not mimic historical styles, but should be innovative design, which will support a building of this size," was a general comment. I don't think we said to anybody, you cannot build in a historical society if that's your choice. And I don't think this board has ever told an applicant.
Style.
Well, see, that's the conditions, though. That's
that's why I'm saying that's why I'd like them to be reworded. There was a community commentary in the newspaper today. Excuse me if I'm having trouble speaking. I just had 4 wisdom teeth pulled, so I'm a little chipmunk-like.
Take your time.
There was a community commentary about architecture and historical styles, and I agreed with a lot of what that commentary said. So I don't think that we're at odds with the community on this. I think what we're asking for is an excellent design, whatever style they choose to be. We would like to see something more contemporary, I think, but that being contemporary does not mean that you don't pick up on other styles around you, that you don't build on other styles. If a good design has to be site-specific. It has to take into account what's around it, regardless of the style that it chooses to be. And so, to that extent, I agree that it has to be reactive to the prevailing styles that are in the area and on the street. It doesn't mean, I don't think that, I still think they can do a successful building that is more contemporary, keeping all of that context in account. What I said before, and I'll say again, is my fear with trying to imitate older styles, craftsman or Victorian in a build, especially in a larger building, is that they tend to look fake. They tend to look more like the Americana or more like El Torito, what, I'm not trying to say anything bad about those projects, but that tends to be the kind of direction they go in, and I think we can do a little.
The comment was not to copy a style, but rather to understand the style and interpret that in a modern way that will be relevant to the future development of Foothill as a main corridor, and that is so important to so many people. So our comment wasn't to discourage from considering historic styles, but we asked for those styles to be understood in a modern context.
Absolutely, and so what I would like is for the staff to rewrite these conditions and comments to better reflect both of those things, that I think that the comments should say that we had real reservations about that building as presented, that we were not in an inclination to pass any variation on that building, especially with the massing and the size and everything else. I would strike that comment about the historical style being inappropriate. I'd like to leave style more open to them. And I definitely would love Mr. Zarifian's wording, somehow to be incorporated about building on the styles that are around it and reinterpreting it.
Similar to the last bullet point in the comments section, or?
Yeah, but to say that they should look at what's around it. They should build on the other styles in the area. They're not existing in a vacuum, and any good design would take what's around it into consideration. But I just think that, for the sake of the applicant as well as the community, I think these comments should reflect more of our misgivings about that original building that was brought in, so that everybody understands we don't expect to see that same building again.
Yeah, that last bullet point should just read, the building style should be innovative design. Just pull out the sections they should not mimic, that's all.
Okay, the building style.
The building should be an innovative design, which will support a building of its size. That's all. Just take out between should and. And
I would also make the first condition stronger, and rather than just saying consider stepping back to third floor, I think we should word that we have reservations whether a third floor here can be appropriate. They have to really work hard, I think, to if they're going to do a third floor, to be more respectful to the neighbors behind them so that they're not in an 80-foot canyon all of a sudden.
Maybe we should preface all the conditions with just a general, the board had reservations regarding the building as presented, and then list the conditions.
That's fine.
Is that...
But rather than vote on these now, I would like, if you guys agree, that the minutes be reworked and come back so that we can then vote on this.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right?
We will
And
do that.
removing the last condition, are we agreed with that one, or?
I got that.
Okay,
Yeah.
just I didn't know where.
Are there any other...
Actually, Tim?
Yeah, without commenting on the content of these minutes per se, perhaps to clear up some of the confusion with the public, in times past, the board did have the ability to sort of flunk something on preliminary review. With recent changes to the ordinance, that no longer exists. So you're quite correct that you're not approving anything here. And as a matter of fact, with the recent changes to the DRB process, it was envisioned that almost always preliminary review would be conducted by staff only. Now, for a couple of larger projects, people have requested to come before the board, and perhaps that's where the kind of public confusion comes in, because they're used to you being able to, say no more definitively than you are allowed to do really in a preliminary design.
Or returning the project for redesign in the preliminary phase.
Or preventing it from going forward to final or something like, which you used to be able to do, but under the more streamlined process, neither the board nor staff has that power.
Well, just to understand the semantics, in a preliminary design, are we actually putting conditions?
Well, that was going to be my next point.
Okay.
Perhaps we should just refer to those as comments or...
Comments rather than conditions. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the conditions,
Right,
I think, the issue.
You
Yeah.
took the words out of my mouth.
Thank you for pointing that out, because that's where my confusion came in last time, and I understand why it's taken me until just now to really understand why we were told we couldn't return it for redesign, which I think was sort of all of our inclination. So I hope that your explanation, shows the community kind of where the mindset of this board is at when it comes to this project. And I really do hope that, I think that, I hope that they do come back with something that people like. I'm not trying to discourage the applicants from going forward, just to move into a different direction.
Ms. Friedman, I've got a question for you. Actually, under the comment section, the board is not opposed to a third story as long as it's appropriate in its mass and scale to Foothill Boulevard. Is that more of what you all felt versus
Yes, I
whether
if
reservation about whether a third floor is appropriate?
If there's a way that they can do a third, convince, it's sort of the same thing. It's really, you're saying the same thing. We do have concerns about whether it's possible, but at this point, since we are asking them to come back with a completely different building, it's within the realm of possibility that they'll come back with something that's, really incredible and innovative that doesn't sacrifice the neighbors behind them.
Okay.
If they can do that, great, but they're going to have to really take those people into account, because, it's going to be...
I think just simply taking that third story we're not opposed to third story. I think there's a lot other comments that relate to the third story that kind of, it needs to be read together somehow to kind of understand what we were talking about. By the time they're done with what we're saying, they may end up losing the third story, but in order for them to be able to get the third story, they need to meet certain conditions that we put in. And so, I don't know if we really oppose it, or are they able to even physically be able
And you won't know until they come back
Exactly.
and present something and you look at
Exactly.
it. Okay. Were there any other concerns you had regarding this section of the minutes? Okay. All right. Well, we will rework them and bring them back to you next
Thank
in 2 weeks.
July 31st, I was absent, so I need to pass this along.
I think I read them and they were okay.
You guys were here, so.
It was us. I don't know if I got these minutes. Maybe I did. Oh, yeah, I read these, I was fine with these.
I think I was too.
Can I see that copy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was okay with that.
And just a clarification, are we still able to open up the emailed minutes? And I kind of confused on last discussion that we had, that we weren't supposed to get it in the, but now we are. So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I'm
afraid to even open it. Once I open it, then it's a...
Yeah, unfortunately, the minutes on some of the minutes on the agenda were not ready when you all received the packet, and so you did get minutes emailed to you yesterday, but that will not be our practice.
Okay. So, am I allowed to sign this, being that I wasn't the chair in that hearing, or?
The question on the minutes of July 31st.
Sure.
Miss Friedman was
yes.
you were chairing it. Wasn't she signing it?
So should Laura?
Ms. Freeman could sign it.
Okay, signed.
And you're fine with it. I didn't hear the motion, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You didn't make a motion.
Oh, you need to make a motion.
I would move approval of the minutes for the July 31st, 2008.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, let me do a roll call. Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Garagos?
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
Mr. Malikian?
Abstain.
Okay, and Ms. Friedman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Actually,
Doing it.
I was absent. I just remember.
He's happy with them, though.
You can be happy with them. You can
Yeah.
go vote for them.
All right, that's all we have on the agenda for
Then
I have
we're
one,
adjourned.
if I may.
We'll watch
Thank you.
Next time.
the next one.